Good morning, everybody. It's Thursday, May 9th, and this is the AgYield War Room. I'm Dan Dempsey, and I'll be moderating today's session. As always, if you've got any questions or comments, please feel free to drop us a line in the chat area, and we'll be sure to get to it during the show. Overnight markets here had July corn down 3/4 at 457 3/4. July soybeans were down 3 1/4 at 1224 1/2, and July Chicago wheat was up 10 at 644. This morning's export sales report was pretty good for corn, 889,200 for 23, 49,100 for 24. They were looking for 600 to 1.1, so a pretty solid week in the corn complex. Soybeans, 428,900, sort of in the middle of the range, 250 to 600 was what they were looking for there. And for wheat, a little bit of 23 sales, 41,100, with the bulk coming in 24, 406,000. So right in line with estimates on the wheat complex, and 209,300 for meal, which was in the upper end of the range. We did also have an export sales announcement here this morning, 132,080 metric tons of corn to Mexico. 60,960 of that was for 23. 71,120 was for 24. Also, jobless claims came out this morning. They were up 231,000. That was a miss on the estimate. They were looking for closer to 214 or so. So not a real positive number there in the jobless claims from a month ago. Good morning, guys. One more day till the report. We've got had some rain systems go through, a good portion of the Midwest here overnight and into this morning. By all accounts, there's mixed opinions on this 5 to 10 day. Looks like there's going to be a drying window, followed by some pockets that potentially maybe still get a little bit of precipitation. So building on the theme that we've been talking about, feels like there's going to be a window here. We should see some progress, and then get this thing planted. Outside of that, nothing real exciting or fresh outside of everybody looking towards WASD tomorrow. Justin, maybe a few comments to start, and we can go from there.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Dan. A couple comments. I saw also Chinese had their April import data for beans, so that was a record at 8.57 million tons. So we're still lagging year to date Chinese imports by like 3%. But it was a record for the month, so maybe, with some cheaper Brazilian supplies, maybe they're going to catch up here on soybean imports. Maybe they've been hand to mouth, and meal demand maybe kicking up a little bit. So that's kind of a positive. Beans have been really, really sluggish. Because all the market shares moved to Brazil basically, and B, because China total imports have been down. So to see them hit a record for the month, if that can kind of continue, I think that's pretty positive for the bean complex. A lot of stories also going into, I think you're getting a lot of attention on this used cooking oil, dumping practices that are going on for the soybean oil market and the biodiesel market. It's pretty staggering numbers. Starting to get a lot of publicity there. Hopefully, there's enough lobbying that there's some kind of anti-dumping thing that might happen. That'll take time, but it's pretty obvious that's there could be a lot of shenanigans going on with people earning credits and these green fuel credits that aren't really green. A lot of indications that used cooking oil is not really used cooking oil. It's palm oil that's packages used cooking oil to make that arbitrage. So we've run the world veg oil market, soybean oil basically to the price of used cooking oil. So the unintended consequences, not only are we not super tight on bean oil because it's a feedstock for biodiesel that we're financing. Now we've priced the soybean oil market basically to compete with used cooking oil, which is pretty crazy to think about.
Wow.
Which I think explains a lot of what's happened in that, oil share and the recent rally in soybean meal prices. It's really shaking up the soybean complex. So I think there's a lot of interesting things that'll develop here throughout the rest of the year. As far as the report tomorrow, pretty huge range of guesses. I'm not sure why exactly, but big range of guesses for carryouts tomorrow. There's a 500 million bushel range for corn, from basically 2 billion to 2.5 billion. 240 bushel range in soybean carryout estimates from 315 to 550, and 180 million in wheat. So there could be, there could be a lot of different things in this report to look at. Obviously, it's the first, real new crop report that we're getting since the acres intentions that we got at the end of March. So it's our first real. We've had, kind of, uh, different numbers by the government just for budgetary reasons, but these are the first kind of real ones. So the market will be excited. I think maybe part of the sell-off yesterday was, they probably will look pretty bearish to start, but I think that's news that we've already digested at some point. We've already been kind of know the yields are going to be high and the carryouts will be large, but now we're in the weather market and seeing, what's happening in Safrina, what's happening here in the U.S. Got to get it planted, some of those kinds of things. So we'll see what the market does. Obviously, a lot of eyes also going to be on what the USDA does for, the Safrina corn crop and the Brazil bean crop. Still some big discrepancies there from the USDA and the local estimates or private estimates down in South America. So I think those will be the, obviously the biggest things that we're looking at tomorrow.
And to be clear, everybody I think has it in their mind that they have to converge at some point, and that's not necessarily the case, right? I mean, the USDA doesn't have to come to the South American type estimates, CONAB and folks like that.
No, and vice versa, right? So,
right.
Usually kind of look, the market eventually tells you what that is. So it can be frustrating to obsess over, one number or the other. My experience, more importantly, it's the trend of which direction it's going. If we start to lower to raise it, I would think we've had, another slash to estimates in Safrina corn again. So they've been coming down pretty dramatically. So I think if the USDA did not lower corn tomorrow, it would be kind of surprising. Just because it feels like there's enough people. It's been hot and dry. It really hasn't had ideal weather outside of maybe a 10-day window there where you got some good relieving rains. It's been over a month now. It's been pretty hot and dry. So not a great finish either way to the Safrina corn crop.
Yeah, you've been talking about that for a couple of weeks. It's interesting. You had referenced something. It was yesterday or the day before, just about the dependency of other countries and how they're trying to, or become more dependent. I saw a story overnight about the Chinese approving this gene-edited, disease-resistant wheat, and I just thought, it struck my eye that obviously the number one thing was trying to boost domestic production, and reducing grain imports. And I just thought, is this just going to continue to be an ongoing theme globally for these countries?
Well, I think certainly China, something that's so reliant on imports. They'll take anybody, right? Russia, like, that's great. We'll take their stuff. They'll take anything they can. And they're such a big importer, that they've had to make huge investments in South America and just everywhere. Buying Syngenta, anything they can do to, improve genetics, increase their homegrown yields, just to be less reliant on imports. And, maybe, we really haven't seen, like I talked about, we just had a record this month, so we'll see if that changes. But so far they've kind of plateaued a little bit on bean imports. So I'm sure that, yields are improving and some of those things are certainly helping. More efficiency on the way that they feed hogs. They had a super hot ration for years. Which a few years ago they changed the ration to less meal just to try to be more efficient on their feed to get more in line with kind of how the U.S. feeds and other areas. So yeah, just a lot of little things I think that they will try to do. They only have so much land, so the only way they can improve is by better practices and different efficiencies and genetics. So I think that for sure that trend will continue.
Very good. And along the same lines on the Chinese theme, Ryland, I saw a story early yesterday that they released about 30,000 hogs or so in the domestic market over in China. Some thoughts on that, and then we'll get to kind of segue into livestock here.
Yeah, I mean, they've been actively just trying to control prices. I think that's what's going on. And I think they've kind of cut their sow herd back and their production back enough where, maybe they're trying to find some equilibrium here. You don't want to have an undersupplied market for too long. So I don't know if it's going to be that significant of a move, but I think that's definitely something to keep an eye on. I mean, whenever they try to actively control prices and their population of hogs, you can get into some pretty volatile times, So, I mean, our prices are obviously starting to I think that was at least kind of a catalyst for a lot of the speculative longs in our markets to kind of keep this massively long position right now. And as we're seeing right now, they're starting to kind of wiggle their way out right now. So it feels like the story is changing a little bit, kind of across all fronts.
Very good. Thoughts on beef?
Yeah, I mean, we're kind of stuck in this kind of wide range of trade right now. We've seen beef just completely fall out of bed, for the most part when it should be kind of rallying. So I think that's catching the market a little bit off guard here. We're carrying the big discount in June relative to last week's cash. We really haven't seen too much cash, even though it's been kind of higher. There's some concerns that we're going to start, if everything kind of holds up the way it is right now, packer margins are really going to slip. So we would expect kind of reduced kills here, kind of going forward. But we've got this big discount kind of priced in. Everybody's expecting cash to maybe start to trend a little lower here, but we could also see the more kind of range bound kind of sideways action as we saw last year after the summer. So I think just right now, all eyes are kind of on the big picture, and with bird flu still kind of on the back burner right now, but still pretty relevant. You're just not getting a whole lot of support here on the board. I mean, open interest was down, another 1,900 contracts. So, it seems like the specs are starting to turn a little bit of a blind eye to this supply tightness story and focus a little bit more on, real demand at current prices.
Oh, very good. Couple of administrative pieces here, excuse me, as we wrap. Tomorrow, USDA report will be out at 11 Central. We will have a bonus War Room edition at 11:05 with reaction to the report. We'll talk through the numbers and what this means as we go forward. So that'll be great. Also, we will have Brian's Fun Fact Friday, which is always a good start to the weekend. So with that, guys, any other parting shots? Like I said, not a lot of fresh news here this morning. We're good to go on our side. Looks pretty good. All right, perfect. Every day that the markets are open, we are streaming live on X, Facebook Live, and YouTube Live, 8:15 Central Time. Hope everybody has a great day today. We look forward to talking to you tomorrow.
Thanks.